We're about to get started giving you an overview of enterprise thinking, its categories, activities, and then we're going to cross over into the 7 crosses. Before we do that, what I'd like to do is start off with a simple premise that if you look at the tool enterprise thinking, I don't want you to consider it to be one approach that starts at one end and moves to another. The other day I was in a meeting and I said to an individual, the model that you're looking at in the book, which is round, used to be a square. And the challenge is people would try to do it in a Z shape in terms of making the solution or understanding it. And I said, the reason it's a circle is because there's no beginning, no end, that it works together. And the second part that I'd like you to understand or take a look into is that if you improve one area, you improve the other, that there's an interconnectivity between them. Now, if you look at the model below or in the book, you'll find that we have strategizing, learning, performing, and forecasting. And what I'd like to do is go over them. I'd like to share with you some thoughts about that. So in the strategizing area, what you're doing is you're doing the planning. And there are several components because every day you're making plans for the future. You're trying to design what's going to happen. And in doing so, you're going to be looking at 4 basic categories. So there's actually strategizing, there's planning, looking, creating plans, where you're outlining better steps and methodologies, approaches, tools, processes to get people to where they want them to go. The second thing you're going to be looking at is new products and services. That all leaders every day are creating new products and services for their organizations to improve them. Third is alliances, the connectivity, the person next to you, the vendor, the media. And the last one is the leveraging of technology. Being able to leverage technology so that you can amplify, you can improve the organizational performance. And that's what happens in strategizing. The second one that I'd like to go over is learning. Now, you're in 2 states of learning all the time. The first one is that you're gaining awareness, and the second state is you're getting in-depth knowledge. And most people are not aware that they spend most time in the awareness stage. Here we're going to go over 3 different areas of understanding. The first one is understanding that awareness and how you can gain new knowledge. The second one is looking at competition and understanding competition, how it works, what it does in competitive analysis. And the third one in this category is the activity of global awareness. And surprisingly, and this is not written in the book, when we were working with our original publisher, the first publisher, they actually took this section out of the book. They said in today's times, and this is written, in today's time it's not important to know about global awareness. And they took out the chapter, replaced it with 6 bullet points, one of which was, when you go to an Asian culture, you should know to bow. How wrong is that? They should be reading the book. The third one that we're going to be covering is performing, and this is the action-oriented. It's different than the other 3. It's taking what you've done in the other activities and acting on them. It's more engaging with individuals on a following through on the pieces that you've already been working on. So here you're performing the act of it, which is being the white horse leader, getting out and engaging people. A second component of it is empowering people, making sure that they know what their roles are and how to do them, and getting the ultimate out of them, but also so that they can perform at their highest. The third one is innovating, and innovation is much different than new product and service development. What innovation is like a gasoline. It gets you sparked, but without the others, it doesn't go anywhere. And the last one in this is selling continuously. And I'll share with you that in all the books I've read, in all the places I've looked, people don't talk about selling, and yet the consummate salesperson is someone in management. Their sale is to so many different people in so many different ways. You're going to enjoy the exposure to this chapter. The last one is the forecasting, and you have to look far enough ahead to envision and build a promising future. And what you're going to learn here are new tools on how to look into the future far enough in advance to do a great job. And I remember speaking at a conference one day, and a famous author's team was there. And when I was done, they walked over, they said, we've been telling people for 20 years that you cannot forecast, and in 20 minutes you proved us wrong. And I don't mean to say that in a negative light. What I'm meaning is you're going to learn something that's going to be extremely valuable. And I want to move you from being a current or a past-oriented person to a future-oriented person, really seeing the future and being able to make better decisions. Now, let's play a scenario out. How does this work, the interconnectivity of them? This is really fun. Let's say you're reading in a publication and you find that a raw material supplier of yours is having troubles. Well, the first thing you're going to do is start planning. How do we get around this? How do we do? So you jump to the strategizing component from the learning. And as you do this, you have to share with your team what's going on. Well, that's the act of performing. You're now going to be selling them on the movement and what's going on within it. You might jump back to strategizing and the technology and say, well, maybe we can get rid of the technology because you start forecasting tomorrow's needs. And you say, this is going to be a challenge long term. So what you've done is you've moved from one category to another, to another, to another, back and forth, from one activity to another and back and forth. Now the leveraging of that is tremendous. So I want you to not look at this book as a two-dimensional book. It's actually a three-dimensional book. I wish I could put the model in a three-dimensional form because there's no linear format here. You could learn one thing, go to another, and just like an athlete who improves their muscles, learning one sport helps them in another. No different. Now, isn't that better than saying we're going to teach you about persevering, or we're going to teach you about charisma, or being driven or focused, or being organized? Isn't that better than taking characteristics and trying to transform people by giving them tools that they can leverage? I mean, there's a huge difference between the two. If you've ever tried to get your children to be focused, if you've ever tried to get them to be charismatic, or someone in your office or someone you work with to be that way, you'll know it's an unbelievably challenging task. Here, we can improve their performance by giving them a tool, and that tool will transform how they do their work. Now, very closely tied to this is the concept of what's called the universality of enterprise thinking. And it covers what originally started off with as a direction for me, but it became a core concept within the book. If, in fact, enterprise thinking and the concept of this model that this tool that you've just learned about is universal, it's got to be universal everywhere. It can't just be in finance and not in marketing, or it can't be in a business of manufacturing and not in the service sector. It has to be everywhere. It also has to be across industries and across cultures. And when I started writing the book, I had some parameters. Nothing would enter into the book if it really didn't apply all over. And at first there were 5 crosses, meaning that the concept had to be used across 5. And over time there was a 6th, and over time there was a 7th. And let me read them to you because it's the best way for you to understand them. The first one in the list, and there's no specific order, is there's cross-functional. That means HR, engineering, logistics, whatever you put as your departmental or piece, the tool will apply. So you can use what's in enterprise thinking across all of them. The second one that we're talking about is cross-level. It means the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business or a small business and the frontline person in management decision-making can use the tool. So that means that we're talking about a CEO, a VP, a manager, director, a superintendent, a colonel, profit, nonprofit, government, military, education is what I'm talking about. All could use it. And that would be, and then we have cross-industry. We have nanotechnology, garbage removal, retail. Doesn't make a difference, always has to apply. Cross-sector, profit, nonprofit, government, military, and education. And I don't mention this in the book, and I'm going to tell you here that within the book, we don't use the word company. You'll notice we use the word organization. And the reason is only the profit sector uses the word company. You work for the military, you work for an organization. You work for the government, you work for an organization. And that, what it does is it makes the content inclusive. That for some of you reading other content, you probably have said to yourself, I got to transform it into me. I got to transform it into my work environment. We won't have that happen here. This is organization, and it's intentionally because we're covering the 7 crosses. It's cross-cultural. Whether you're Irish, Australian, Chilean, you're European American, you're Israeli, it doesn't make a difference. It's the same. Cross-time. Now here's a big one, cross-time. That meant that Napoleon had to use it, Alexander the Great had to use it, Genghis Khan, Margaret Thatcher. If you were to look through time Every leader would use the exact same concepts also. The last one that I've got on the list is crosslife. Now here's a jump that I want you to really grab a hold of. That what's in Paid to Think, this is not just a business book. People who read it, in the last chapter I go more into this, realize that it doesn't make a difference. That I can use this exact same content in my personal life, and you will. You will. You'll find that there's a universal application to everything. And through the entire production of the book, I did something that, again, I don't write all these things in the book, but I didn't want people to come back to me and say it doesn't work, it doesn't apply. That's not been the case. But how I tested it was every day when I opened up the paper, I read articles, and it didn't matter what it was in, or I opened up a magazine, and I would say to myself, do they all apply? Is there anything I'm missing? I'll end with this. I received one phone call at one point from an interview. I was asked to be on an interview. And the guy at the end, I think he was trying to throw a zinger at me. He says, David, we got a balanced scorecard, and we've got Six Sigma, and we've got all these tools and everything else. I mean, it's just another tool. And I said, let's talk about that for a minute. And I was able to bring him around to say that enterprise thinking is actually the umbrella for all of these others. Negotiation, PR, all of that falls under selling continuously. It falls under an umbrella. What a leader is doing is selling, but they fall under it. When we talk about each of the categories of balanced scorecard or financial marketing or Myers-Briggs, they could be planning, learning. This becomes the ultimate umbrella covering everything you'd need to do and puts it into one framework that you could teach others. Just think about the power of having one tool, not 50, that can help you, a toolbox, pull everything together. So 7Crosses, the universality of ET. You'll never be the same. This is going to be fun. And I'll probably say you'll never be the same often because I'm thinking back to my life. Once I learned it, I never was able to turn back. So bear with me when I say it because I get excited, and I hope you will too. We'll see you in the next video.